Welcome to the realm of magic and mystery, classic horror and sci-fi. You are now entering the House of the Unusual podcast with your hosts, Eddie and Joe. Welcome all you cool ghouls and friendly fiends to the House of the Unusual podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pavlansky, and with me today, man, we have a full house and a great lineup. We've got Eddie Guevara, Chuck and Cheri Caputo, and Michael Mezmer. What's up, everyone?
All right. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
All right, man. So we're going to do a quick round robin here, see what's new with everyone. And you know what? I'm going to start off with Michael, you haven't been on in a while. So what's new with you, brother?
Well, I've been on tour. I'm in Jerome, Idaho today, and I'm performing at the Jerome County Fair, doing my shows, Transgnosis and Danger Magic, and just really having a great summer tour. Came from Gillette, Wyoming, and so all is good. Doing some ghost hunting along the way and just having a great time.
Ooh, awesome. So are you doing any ghost hunting in where you're at now in Idaho?
You know, I'm looking for some spots right now. I haven't found one right here because I just arrived here yesterday, so I'm doing some research, and hopefully I'll find something cool to do here in town. Yeah.
Awesome. So do you have any updates on your book? Because I think last time we talked, you had a book coming out, or it was coming out soon.
Yeah. It's still, again, it's scheduled to be published by Fayetteville Mafia Press on March 23rd, 2023. And so it's still in that spot right now. I'm just working towards that. They have the whole book already, and it's just they have a lot of things in line and queue. So mine has to wait its turn to be published.
Awesome, man. So we'll definitely have to keep getting updates on that because including myself is going to want to pick up a copy of it and
Thank you.
dig into it because it's more and more, UFOs and paranormal stuff is becoming ever more popular. So it's always interesting to read, people's different perspective and the different places that they've went to. So
and a lot of my stories are really unique because they happened to me in unique places that were different than the typical ghost hunting places on cruise ships in Asia and all that kind of thing. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there.
Awesome, cool, good deal. So hey, Chuck and Cheri, what's going on? What's new with you guys over there in Western PA?
Western PA. We've been doing a lot of outdoor shows. I'm sure Michael can relate to this. There are a lot of hot weather. Oh my goodness. I mean, I was sweating like crazy doing these outdoor shows. And we did stop at the cemetery the other day and we shot a film with Frank Gorshin at his gravesite. And so we sent a raw footage to the House of the Unusual. Maybe Eddie will put it up. But it's, you know what? He has one of the coolest tombstones. If you do find a grave, you can see it. It's really, really neat. And he's out here in Pittsburgh, literally about 25 minutes from our house.
Wow.
Yes, we went there the other day to the Riddler.
And tell them who they said what his vault.
Oh yeah.
Somebody said.
Oh yeah. There was a person that made a comment, and they said that the cemetery told them that when he was buried, that they painted the vault or the outside of the coffin green with question marks on it. So that's kind of cool.
That's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, and then we filmed a little brief video for Chuck's Corner of graveyard magic. So I did some spooky stuff. I have a floating table, talking skull, like a dancing Hank and so forth. So that'll be coming up sometime in the near future. And Cheri, what did you have to?
Well, and today we got his the book that I
Blast Off.
Yeah, called Blast Off.
Oh, awesome! You guys got it.
It came today, so we were looking through it a little bit. We have to get into it more, but it looks like an awesome book.
I love it. Oh man, you know what? The little cosmic blasters from the past and the robots are really cool.
I'm telling you, that book is so awesome. You could spend hours on it. I know I have, just going through it and saying, "Oh man, I want this," and then trying to check the prices online and going, "Oh man, I can't afford this."
Yeah, you better get a better job.
Yeah, really.
Buy that stuff.
Either that, or I got to go rob a bank, and still I might be able to afford one of these blasters. Awesome. So I'm glad to hear that finally got in, because that's a really cool book. And it's one of those where you almost want to just keep it handy. I know when I had mine, I kept it on an end table, and I constantly looked at it for several weeks. Just always when I was watching something. If I watched Space Patrol or some sci-fi, I'd have to grab it and use it as kind of a
Oh,
reference.
absolutely. And you know what? It's a nice hardcover. It's a pretty big book. There's a lot of beautiful colored pages in there. So yeah. So I would highly recommend it if anybody out there in podcast land is interested in stuff like it. It's
Got it
called
from Amazon, right?
we got it from Amazon. It's called Blast Off.
We got somebody wrapping gifts there because I hear like some gift
I don't know
wrapping.
what that is. Or somebody.
No, I don't think it's not
Or
here.
somebody's opening a candy bar or something like that.
Okay, Eddie, what are you doing, Eddie?
No, it's not me. I was hearing that.
I don't know what that is. Yeah. It's not
Yeah,
us.
it sounds like gift wrapping and all that. I know
Probably
it's not Christmas
spirits.
time.
No. That's my gift wrapping his new book for me.
Yeah. So Eddie, what's new with you over at House of the Unusual? You doing some? I know you've been doing a lot of spring cleaning in the house, aka your storage center. So what's going on?
Well, let's just say one thing. It's interesting. Yesterday, I figured I could save some space by putting two drawer filing cabinets, one on top of each other. But I try to do it without taking out the drawers. Okay. And when I did it with myself, as I got up to the other one, I mean, I carried it no problem.
Ooh.
But when I got right on top that, I placed one on top of the other, my back went cut.
Oh no!
Oh man!
And I saw Joe for a second there, and for a second I almost appeared in Mike Mezmer's new book.
Oh man!
As the late Eddie, because
late Eddie.
I saw a little bit of stars, and then I just put it in. Praise Jesus, everything's fine, man. Like
that's good.
Thank
I
God.
don't have to. It hasn't hurt me, but it's like when I'm gonna get up, I have to be careful for the next 1 or 2 days. So I figure maybe till Thursday I won't touch anything in there,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going good. It's going good. I'm gonna need a little more bookshelves, but it's going good. I'm kind of amazed at the amount of area and space that I'm actually filling.
Wow.
Very cool.
But the toy section, the one unit with the storage that's toys. Oh man, it's beginning to look really nice. And what I figured is, I got a couple of those shelves that have wheels in the bottom, the steel ones, so that if I get one actually I have two, but I was thinking of getting two more. This way, when I want to display, I can just roll them out.
You can roll it out, yeah.
Right, and they'll have the toys already on them, and it'll look amazing. It'll look like I'm.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That would be neat. Yeah. Wow.
And then Joe can come over from Ohio. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ohio.
Yeah, I'm definitely not in Idaho.
Joe, they told me you like potatoes, so I figured.
Yeah, you like potatoes?
Yeah. So Eddie, how's the that magic set on Etsy, the handmade magic set by Chuck Caputo? Do we still got any of those available? I think last time we talked there was 2 or 3.
We still have 2 available now. Of course, it is a pretty high price on them, so they're not going to be a quick sell. But there are. Actually, we have three available. I'm sorry.
Now, what's included in that? I'm curious.
What was that?
I'm curious what's in that set. I've followed most of the stuff, but I guess I missed that one.
If you go into, it's a magic set. It's been out now almost a couple of months. If you go to Etsy,
okay,
it's called House of the Unusual on Etsy.
Okay,
you can actually see what the set is, and it has things inside and stuff. And of course, Chuck. The only thing is you got to make sure Chuck doesn't make it disappear. You got to.
Yeah. I tell you what, Michael. You know what? There's a lot of things that I made. You know what? That I actually built myself. One is
wow.
Yeah, one is a floating shrunken head. That floats.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, there's a handcrafted monkey's paw and everything. There's a walking zombie that stops on the playing cards, like it's called Zombie with a Brain.
That's cute.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's all spooky. It's all spooky stuff. It's all handcrafted by myself. And Eddie packaged it. He made the label. You know what? Speaking of that kid, Eddie, it's strange you should mention it because I was just talking to a collector from Naples, Italy. I think he's from, and he had purchased a few things from me in the past, and I had sent him the link to the Etsy of that exact same thing. So so we'll see what happens.
How cool!
One of the things I want to say, Mike, basically the whole thing was done with Chuck, except all they did was the labeling and the packaging of the individual products and then the box itself.
Yeah. I love the label. Like it's got that old comic book look to it. It's really
how cool.
Yeah, very, very nice.
Wow.
I'm looking at mine right now because I still haven't opened it. But yeah, it's got a so you have a horror magic set. So here's everything that's listed in it. Illusions from Beyond the Grave. We have The Gathering, Zombie with the Brain, Floating Shrunken Head, Monkey's
Oh,
Hercules Death Pillar, Phantom Dollar Bill, Spirit Time, Mind Reading Swami, Deep Space Terror, and Haunted Severed Finger. And bonus inside, From the Grave, Houdini's Last Letter plus Chuck's Magic Course.
how awesome!
Yeah, it's a nice thing. I love the Houdini's letter. That's a really nice touch. Eddie designed that, actually. He designed the letter.
He does good.
And he did a wonderful job on there.
Oh, wow.
And then
for everyone out there, it's still on the Etsy site. We will have a link in the description for today's podcast, where you could go on their Etsy, search House of the Unusual, and it'll pop right up for you.
Wow,
Hey, we
how
did-
cool.
Hey, we did our homework, Joe. We watched several episodes of Good.
Yeah, we did it kinda.
It was the Crimson Ghost.
All right, so now you got to let me know what happened with it. Did you enjoy it? How many episodes did you get through?
Yeah,
only 6.
yeah, we watched
I guess so busy.
I guess it was the first 6, right?
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, they had built that cyclotron, I think they called it. And
Yeah.
And the Crimson Ghost was trying to take it off them, and then he did steal it, but he didn't have the heavy water, and they tricked him with the heavy water. It was neat.
It was different. I love that Dick Tracy guy. You know, he was real agile, and he'd kick off of the walls and beat everybody up. He was too awesome.
Yeah, you know what? Those guys were in better shape than we are nowadays. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Whoa.
I said he's like Dick Van Dyke, you know, real agile and thin.
I tell you what, if I jumped across the room with somebody like that, I'd be in the hospital.
Yeah.
There'd be no two ways
hurt
about
your
it.
back. Yeah.
And did you guys notice who he played Ash? He was a chief henchman for the Crimson Ghost. Did you guys catch who that was?
No,
No.
I didn't.
No. Michael, have you ever seen the?
Was it Leonard Nimoy?
No.
No.
We're getting kind of close.
Uh-huh.
But he has a very distinct voice.
Boris Karloff.
No. You would know him from dun 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 dun.
Oh, Clayton Moore.
Clayton Moore, yeah, the Lone Ranger.
You're
That's
right.
right. I remember that now.
The Lone Ranger himself plays a bad guy. Could you imagine that?
Oh,
Yes,
my.
Tonto.
Oh my gosh, dude! I'm gonna tell you. Listen, when I watched that, and I'm like, hold on, I go, that's Clayton Moore. I'm like,
Yeah.
he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
It really threw me off. I'm like, that's not Clayton Moore. He can't play a bad guy. What is this?
I love the mask on the Crimson Ghost. His eyes are deep set, and
That's really cool. Yeah, the mask.
Yeah, the eyes really sell it. That's a pretty good looking set of eyes there.
Yeah.
Did anybody see the Crimson Ghost with the Boris Karloff? Did you ever see that one, Joe?
I don't think so.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah, the Crimson Ghost, that's very big with the Monster Fan Club. The newsletter inside that's all about Boris Karloff tells them about him and the new Crimson Ghost movie that came out. So I guess it came out in 1959.
Is it Crimson Ghost or is it Crimson? I just wonder, is that correct, the name?
I believe so, Joe. Is that correct?
I'm gonna have to check. I don't believe so.
Yes, yeah, I'm almost positive because I remember. Oh no, the Crimson Cult.
That's it. The
Oh, the
Crimson
Crimson
Cult.
Cult.
Yes.
Okay, they took the ghost out. Wow, man, those thieves.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, and they also all carry guns. I mean, man, there's
Every one of them.
Yeah, they're plugging each other left and right.
Yeah, there's always some type of shooting there. And my favorite is the secret passages.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in every serial you'll find.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just about every 99% you'll find secret passages.
You know, Joe, when you say secret passages and stuff, this is kind of interesting. There's a movie. It's called In Time with Justin Timberlake. I watched it. I mean, the ending could be better, a lot better actually. But the movie kept me on hold. It was kind of interesting. Like people lived, but they only got to live to 25 years. And then after that, they have a biological clock built into their arms. And after that, you only get 1 day at a time. So say you work, they give you like 2 hours, or 3 a day. So you have to keep doing things. You're going to go to the movies, it's like 10 minutes. You get on the bus, 1 hour.
Wow.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it. It was very interesting.
That almost sounds like what
Logan's
was that movie?
Run.
Logan's Run, yeah.
Logan's Run,
You know
yeah.
what? You're right. It sounds just like Logan's Run.
Yeah, that was a weird movie. You know, when I first watched it, and I actually just seen that maybe 6-7 years ago. I remember I'd watched it in the 90s before, but I didn't really remember it. So I watched it a couple years ago, and that's a really like scary premise to think about. You know what I mean? If that was to happen to you, you'd be running too, I guess. I would think so. I would run.
Yeah. Logan, I used to like Logan's Run because of Farrah Fawcett Majors in it back in the day.
Yes. Yes. And also Roscoe Lee Brown, Plankton from the Sea. I saw it in the movie theater when it came out. It was awesome.
Wow. Yep.
That's cool, man. You know, so I think because I didn't really have one slotted, but I was kind of gonna play off of what we're talking about today. But let's make Logan's Run our movie of the week.
Yes.
Because you know what, there's probably a lot of people out there that haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, it's probably been a while. So let's make it our movie of the week, Logan's Run. So
yeah, I don't think
everyone out there find the movie and watch it. Cheri, I'm looking at you. I'm pointing at you.
I know. I never did see it, so that'll be good. That'd be good.
It's worth watching just to see Jenny Agutter in that little outfit she wears the whole film.
Yeah. I think that came out in about 76, maybe.
Huh. Maybe a little earlier. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Was that with Michael York?
Michael York, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
I like him.
Yeah, that was a cool movie.
Yeah, so it came out in 1976. It was directed by Michael Anderson. Mm-hmm. And it was based off of Logan's Run by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson. And the movie starred Michael York, Jenny Agutter, Richard Jordan, Roscoe Lee Brown, Farrah Fawcett Majors, and Peter Ustinov.
Yes, Peter Ustinov.
Yeah, that was a cool movie. You know what? The one movie that kind of reminds me of that a little bit is the one with Richard Dawson, The Running Man.
I remember
that was kind of unique. That was a strange movie too, but it was neat. I mean, he was a real jerk.
They're talking about redoing that right now, by the way.
Okay,
really?
That was neat. That was a cool movie. I really liked that a lot.
Yeah. And I want to follow up on Logan's Run. There was also a TV series starring Gregory Harrison too. It was short-lived, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. You're right. Hey, did any of you guys hear about the latest Batgirl? They scrapped the whole $100 film.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy. How much they lost a lot of money on? What was it, like 70 million or something?
90 million.
Wow.
90 million.
That's a lot of money.
They said it was so bad they just scrapped it. Nobody would even see it.
I don't know if it was though. You know, the new people took over Warner Brothers in that department, and I think they just want to do their own agenda. And I think they don't want any more missteps for the DCU. And so what they're doing is they're just going to take the tax write-off on it, because otherwise they're feeling that, you know, it's another misstep that might, not that it was so bad, but that it might not be. They screened it, and what they did was when they screened it, they took a test to see if people thought it was worthy of being on the big screen, and people said no. And so in retrospect, they decided, well, we don't want to spend $90 million to put it on HBO, straight to HBO. So that's their excuse anyway, why they dropped it.
Let me ask you this, Michael. How do you think a company that big with all these professionals make a 90 million blunder like that?
You know,
a movie's not that good. How do you make a movie not that good for $90 million?
You know, it can go back to the old thing where you have the nephew of the company running the thing or something. You know, I mean, I don't know what people in the industry, what happens there is they get in favor and they just give them money to do something. And we don't know why. Why is there the Harvey Weinsteins? Why is there all these things? But there's a lot of behind the scenes reasons they let these people take money and go crazy with it and do a premise. Yeah. So it could be that just someone took, you know, whoever was in charge of it was in charge at that moment. And they said, oh, my best friend, my cousin, my lover, whatever can do this. Mm-hmm. And then when the new people took over, they said, wait a minute, we're not going to let this thing go out because we really have an idea that we want to compete with Marvel. And this is going to definitely set us back another year or two, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a big problem with DC too, is from the beginning that they've been trying to compete with Marvel through the movies, and they never had a game plan. It was kind of throw this movie out, and nothing kind of lined up for a complete story like how Marvel had in their phase one, leading from what was it, Iron Man up to the final Avengers movie. I think DC wanted to do something like that, but they just had no kind of game plan. Didn't know what they were doing. It was we need to throw out a movie to compete with Marvel. Oh, okay, let's throw out another one.
Yeah, and the problem was too, they didn't have Robert Downey Jr. anchor everything off of. Robert Downey Jr. was a movie star. I mean, I know he had his missteps, he had his drug abuse and all that, but when he came back, man, he is a movie star.
He's a great actor.
He's on the quality of Charlie Chaplin, the film he did on Chaplin and all that. But when he came in, they were lucky.
He took a huge gamble too with that first Iron Man movie. He only made what, like 200,000?
Right.
Really?
So he took a huge gamble because, you look at Marvel movies in the past and, pre-Iron Man, and they weren't that good. You had the Blade trilogy, which was, the first one was good. The second, it kind of went downhill, but comic book movies really weren't that big. So I think he took a huge risk in that first one, especially only making 200,000. In this movie, it was either going to make or break his career, and it shot him, to the moon.
Absolutely. But the thing is, DC, I guess Gal Gadot would be one that she's very good. But other than that, Henry Cavill, fine as Superman. He's no Chris Reeves. But the thing is that they don't really have a Robert Downey Jr. anchoring their universe.
No, that's true.
Right, yeah.
That's true. You mentioned Chaplin, Michael. Cheri, I don't know if you remember this or not.
I do. I was just going to say.
Okay, yeah. About 32 years ago, back when Cheri and I were dating, it was at a community days that we did a show, and so she was my assistant. And so we had driven up to the place, and I said, "Hey, there's Robert Downey Jr." He was standing there with a see-through plexiglass suitcase next to a guy, and you know what? He was completely motionless. He was just standing like he was walking, but he wasn't walking. And the guy next to him was a friend of mine. He's a mime. Shout out to Dan Kamen from here in Pittsburgh.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah, you know what? So he was training him. Dan Kamen was the mime, and he was training Robert Downey Jr. for that part.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So that was so cool. So I said, "Hey, Dan." So he broke character. He goes, "Oh, hi, Chuck. Hi." But it was funny. Yeah.
And he was nominated for an Academy Award for that role.
He was nominated for, yeah.
You know something, when you guys are saying, one of the things I'm going to tell you, Robert Downey Jr. is an awesome, phenomenal actor. But when you see, I think it's not as much as the actors with DC. I think it's more that they don't have a storyline that's believable, or more like for example, the last Superman, they killed it, man. He would punch, he punched Chuck, and Chuck goes through 3 cars. What about the damage to Chuck's body? You know what I'm saying? Like, they got to be more like the Christopher Reeves or George Reeves of the 1950s, where it's more human, more a powerful man that let's say he can go through a car or something like that, but not to the extreme of 5-10 cars.
No.
So I think they kill it with the CGI, and whoever does the storyline is just either high on drugs when they're doing it, or they're just nuts.
But Eddie, the thing is, they weren't true to the character. They had him snap Zod's neck at the end of that. And, Superman doesn't snap anyone's neck. Superman doesn't kill people. Superman's a hero. He's not a murderer. And so they really got away from what made Superman. And so I think that's a lot of it too. They just weren't true to the character.
And you know what's ironic with what you just said right now, Mike? That the Superman character in comic books has been made more vulnerable over time. In the beginning, he was invincible, and then they try to change his character more human-like. In the movies, they've done the opposite. They've done from a regular man to invincible. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's
now I'm gonna have to, because what Eddie and Mike said, I'm gonna have to agree and disagree with a few things that you guys touched on there, dealing with Superman and the DC movies. Now, you've always had the two big, and I'm gonna touch on this first. You've always had the two big competitors, DC and Marvel, and it started off with the comic books. Now, in the comic books, if you look at the entirety of DC and the entirety of Marvel, you had two different ways of thinking in both universes. And in the Marvel universe, you really had its way of thinking was brought by Stan Lee, who really kind of changed it over to how it was in the early days. And he wanted it to be more realistic. He wanted it to be kind of it's almost set in this world. You could imagine yourself in their shoes. You could imagine yourself standing in New York and seeing Spider-Man, swing through the skies. So it was a more realistic universe. On DC's end, it was more of a fantasy universe.
Right.
They tried to install some aspects of reality, but DC was more over the top, more fantasy, more science fiction. So it was kind of like a night and day with Marvel and DC and their storytelling, and they did it for specific reasons, because they wanted to compete against each other, and that's how, that's just how they were. That's how the guys there wanted it. So now when you have the movies, you had Marvel they tried to do it a little bit more realistic. In DC, I think that they tried to keep a little bit more of that over-the-top sci-fi fantasy, how it was in the comic books. And I think that because how hard that Marvel cinematic universe hit the fan base, that people didn't relate to the DC movies, that it was just too unbelievable. It was too over the top. People, they didn't relate to the characters because they weren't relatable.
No, well, that was always the way with DC. You're right. I mean, DC was always like the heroes were like godlike.
Exactly. Perfectly put. Yes.
But the other difference between DC and Marvel, a big difference, was that in Marvel, the kid heroes were not sidekicks. They were heroes like Spider-Man. So young people could relate to them and to their normal lives. Whereas in DC, the kid people were always sidekicks to the hero. Yeah. And so it was a whole different vibe.
Yeah, and you could look at Marvel and you could almost say, man, if I got bit by a radioactive spider, or if I took this serum,
yes,
to be like them. But in DC, you had these aliens from other planets. You had different stuff going on. So there's two different things there, and I don't think that it really connected to people in the cinematic universe, because people were able to watch the Marvel movies and connect more to the characters and relate to them, where they couldn't do that with DC.
Well, it's like Thor was the closest one to being like a DC hero, because Thor was created by Kirby and Lee to be the answer to. He was actually supposed to be like Superman. That was why they created him to be the Marvel Superman. So he's the closest to that, that kind of mold that we see in DC that's in Marvel.
Let me ask you.
There was still a relatability though to Thor.
Because he was a doctor. Yeah.
Well, we've all felt, at one point or another, when we're younger or older, unworthy of something or someone, and that we have to try to do better to become worthy of something, and that no matter sometimes how hard we try, it's just not good enough, or it's not happening the right way. I think that people were able to relate with that with Thor, that he was trying to do good, but he was a little kind of conceited, he was over the top, and he didn't really care much, and he was found unworthy to hold Mjolnir, or however you say it. I can never say it right. So.
That was close, man.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people were able to kind of relate to him, where how could you relate to Superman? He's basically invincible except for kryptonite and magic, and he comes from another planet. There's no relatability to that. I mean, of course, everybody wants to fly. I think that's the number one superpower, most people want, but there's nothing you could relate with Superman. There's nothing you could relate with Wonder Woman or Batman. I mean, it's just, it's two different universes. Now, on the end of, what most people don't know with Superman killing somebody in the movies is that he's actually killed in the comic books before. I think there's 11 people or beings that he has killed over the years in the comic books, and it wasn't until I think the early 90s or so that he had stopped killing. Might have been in the 80s, but he has killed in the comic books. I don't think a lot of people realize that going into the movies. However, I don't think that it carried well in the movie. There should have been something else that was done. I just don't think that people related to it well, because when you look at Superman, Truth, Justice, the American Way, he is, he is like the Jesus incarnate of the DC universe. He's the godlike figure, and to see him kill, it kind of depreciates his value as that character.
I agree.
I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think people picked up on them. They're like, "What do you mean Superman killed?" Now, people like me who've been a comic nerd their whole life, I know that Superman has killed before, but I don't agree with it because it doesn't align with his it doesn't align with the way that he is. He's not
in that film too. I think he could have found another solution, is the point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and they should have. I think that was terrible writing on their part that it was an easy cop out. We'll kill him. Yeah, that's it. And it didn't work well. I think you lost a lot of people on that.
I tell you what, it never ceases to amaze me the amount of spin, what that sometimes is put on these characters. I tell you what, if we go back to Frankenstein's monster, way back since I was a kid, I always watched the movies, which he was more or less and he choked the girl, threw her in a pond, and he was just like a wild beast. If you read the actual novel by Mary Shelley, he was very intelligent. I mean, like the monster read poetry. I mean, he was very, very intelligent. I was actually stunned, like back when I read the actual novel. I said, holy smokes.
So he didn't choke anyone?
Well, he still did choke the girl, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, when he threw the little girl in the water.
He read Cheri, he read poetry while he choked someone.
Yeah. Kindly.
I guess he had itchy fingers. He couldn't help that.
But when he threw when he threw the little girl in the water, there wasn't any malice or evil there. They were throwing the flowers, so he just thought she would float too.
That's right.
And so he didn't mean to hurt her. And that's actually it's the reverse with Frankenstein. He started out with the Karloff portrayal being someone he related to and you were sad for, like he was just abused and sad like an abused person.
Right.
And then he became, in the Hammer films, more of a just outright monster.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? I got to tell you guys something, because you guys are saying something here that's right. With DC and Marvel, especially when you were saying the change of character, one thing I wanted to let you guys, my opinion is that both DC and Marvel both had a hit. They did have a hit with the Marvel had a hit with with the Iron Man and stuff, and DC had a hit when they were doing the Batman movies. So I think they kind of used those two and didn't realize they could make crappy things down the road. Then secondly, when you use a female character, look, they've done pretty good films with female characters. They did a very good Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Really awesome. They did another good example of a female character that's not a superhero, like Salt with Angelina Jolie. That movie was phenomenal.
Right.
That was a very good film done, and I think that's where the character. But you know what? I think DC, and I'm going to agree with Joe on this 100%. DC, they do tend to try to make, even with all the movies like the Batman movies they did, Gotham was kind of unrealistic as a real world. And I think they made that same mistake in one of the James Bond film where he is like in Europe and it looks like it's ashy all over the land. And I'm like, come on, man, daylight's not going to look that horrible, in a real, whatever. I think they just overemphasized the grounds or they overemphasized the landscape, which makes it look a little bit like unbelievable. Like Gotham, everybody's killing every 10 minutes, and it's always a dark town. It's supposed to be like New York City, but I mean, give it a daylight type of thing. Make it more realistic. But one thing I'm going to tell you guys, two things. One, Marvel, if you guys remember, Captain Marvel or The Flash, not The Flash, Shazam, was kind of, I think it was Marvel's answer to Superman, I think, at one time.
It was actually from Fawcett Comics originally. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So it wasn't. I was just wondering when you said Thor, you threw me that off. And now I believe, this is my opinion, one of the best things DC ever did was in the early days when they did with George Reeves, Superman. That Superman, even though it was meant for kids, it's more like an adult thing. And I've actually watched it over now as an adult. They were phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
You took the Hulk, and I remember buying the first entire season of the Hulk. And I'm like, did I really watch this crap when I was a young? Like, it's really sucky and slow and boring. Mm-hmm. But I loved it as a kid.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love the Hulk with Bill Bixby. I think that was a great show.
Yeah, I was always a big Hulk fan, even back to the comics when I was a kid.
In fact, they have not topped out. The one they do in the films is nowhere close to as good as the Bill Bixby Ferrigno Hulk.
Ferrigno, yeah, that was a good series. That was
Ferrigno, yeah.
Yeah.
No. I was gonna say that Hulk. If you watch it like today, I loved it as a kid. I mean, I bought, but I'm saying they gave me season 1. My brother-in-law did, and I'm like, this is kind of like boring a little bit. It wasn't as good as when I'm serious. The Bill Bixby one, which shocked me.
Wow, I love it. Yeah,
it was not as good as when I was young.
I'll take another look at it.
What's your take, Joe?
I like a lot of those early Marvel kind of TV shows and all that and films. I think they were good for the times, and
that's true.
They were trying to do something that hadn't been done before and with a limited amount of money, but I think it was just the wrong time for that stuff to come in.
Yeah.
They were trying to, you had Batman that came on, what was that, 66?
66,
yeah. Which was an absolute hit. And like, this is something else I wanted to bring to the forefront with you guys and get your guys' opinion on this, because before I forget. So if you look at Batman, you've almost had over the years two different kind of Batman. And this goes the same for the comic books and in the movies. And there's a point, and I'll get to the point of when he changed. So you had this kind of campy Batman who was, this playboy quadrillionaire, whatever he was, that moonlighted in a costume and fought crime, and then went back to his mansion and smoked a pipe and drank some good brandy and kind of hung out and all that. But then at a certain point, after Frank Miller got a hold of him, he became the Dark Knight. He was this gritty, just terror. He went out and he terrorized criminals. There was a complete change. He was no longer this campy crime-fighting criminal. He was the Dark Knight who terrorized crime. So you could see it in the comics, you could see it in the movies. It was when Frank Miller did the Dark Knight series, which I would believe was sometime in the 80s. I don't know the year offhand, but that's really when it kind of changed for Batman. So what do you guys think? What is your favorite Batman? Do you like the pre-Frank Miller Batman, where he's like the campy playboy crime fighter, or the post-Frank Miller Batman, where he's the Dark Knight?
Whoever I'll put in my 2 cents, because I jumped. I think I like the newer Batman because of the Dark Knight gives us the premises of like the dark and the terrorized, and I think it made the movies such a good hit. Was that change from the original kiddie show? Now, when you say, Joe, that maybe they didn't come out at the right time, I don't know about that, because what made them so popular was actually that they came out in that time zone, such as even Superman, which I'm telling you guys probably haven't watched the George Reeves Superman in years. If you put it on, you're amazed at the quality the Superman really had, the George Reeves Superman.
But I think what Joe is referring to is more the Spider-Man and the Red Brown Captain America and those films. Is that right, Joe?
Yeah, because at the time they wanted to do too much for what was available technology wise, and it just wasn't there at the time. With those characters, yeah, you could have a good story, but with Spider-Man without web swinging or crawling up walls, and the way they did it was real cheap, and it wasn't. With Superman, they were able to kind of, tweak it a little bit where you could have a good story and leave a lot to the imagination. And I think that worked for the time. I think the Hulk definitely worked for the time because it was really cool to see, especially Lou Ferrigno in green. But if you look at it today, I don't think it holds up that well because we're so used to the CGI and the computer generated. But in my opinion, I love watching them. I love the stories, and it's a part of cinematic history, especially on the Marvel side.
Bill Bixby was such a TV star. He really captured the Bruce Banner, David Banner thing.
He was good.
And do you guys know why they changed it from Bruce to David in the show?
You got me on that one.
No, why?
No, you got me.
Because they thought that the name Bruce was too feminine for the character.
Really?
Wow.
So they changed it to David to be a more masculine name.
I didn't know that.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, I didn't either.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, years ago I looked into it because I was wondering why the heck would they change it? I mean, it was the Hulk was popular at the time. What did they change it? And yeah, it was they thought Bruce was too feminine for the TV show.
But
wow.
Could you imagine going out with a girl named Bruce? Hey, Bruce. I don't know.
I can imagine going out with a shark named Bruce.
So back to the Batman, and we'll go.
The Jaws shark was named Bruce. That was the code name. Anyway, go ahead.
We'll go with Chuck and Cheri. What do you guys enjoy more? And it doesn't have to be just with the Batman, being on the campy side or the Dark Knight side, because even with the Dark Knight Returns, it kind of pushed DC Comics in a darker area overall. But What do you guys prefer? Do you prefer the more campy type of comics or the darker type of comics?
Yeah, you know what? I kind of like the darker kind. I mean, it did kind of push the envelope a little bit. I mean, it makes you think, I'll tell you. But yeah, I kind of like that. That direction that they went in. I mean, they took a chance, they did it, and it worked. I mean, it was very popular.
I believe so. Yeah.
What about you, Michael? What's your take on it?
Well, I think with any dramatic heroic characters, like you could compare Batman, the longevity of Batman with the longevity of James Bond. You have Sean Connery, which is hard hitting. Then you have Roger Moore, who was the goof, kind of more funny, did a lot of jokes, a lot of gags. They all work for the character in a different format for a different audience. But for me personally, I mean, Batman, I love Batman in everywhere from the serials. I love the serials of Batman. I love but you know, for me, Adam West will always be Batman. I mean, it's just the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
But I like the new ones too. I think the biggest problem with the superhero movies and movies in general now is they are too long. And when they get that long, the stories start to falter. It's just too much. Every movie now is like a Gone with the Wind they want to make out of it. It's like, I like good 90-minute, little over 90-minute superhero movies, any kind of movie. And I think when you take even The Dark Knight or any of those and they go so long,
I think
it's exhausting to the viewer.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because you know what, Michael, even with our magic shows, as you know, there is such a thing as overstaying your welcome.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I always kind of want to let the audience, to leave them wanting more.
Right.
Too much of a good thing.
Yeah. So you know what? There is such a thing where you're going to kill it if you stay out there too long.
And I really think the Batman movie, I think it was just 20 minutes too long. I felt that way with the new Beast movie from Harry Potter. All of them are just 20 minutes too long, and the writers get exhausted. Everybody gets exhausted. It's too much. And so you're right, Chuck. That's exactly right. Leave them wanting more. And when you don't leave them wanting more, you lose. When the second movie, third movie, people are like, well, I don't know. Like last James Bond movie was just exhausting.
It was exhausting. No, you're right. Yeah. Wow. You know what? I love the movie Titanic. I really do. But
it's so long.
But I thought that was just like, wow, holy smokes! It was.
How could you like that movie? You knew you knew the ending.
Yeah, I knew the ending. But it was
the
just.
Thing is, with Gone with the Wind. Go ahead.
It was what, like 3.5 hours? Something like it was ridiculous.
I mean, yes.
Now, when you have Gone with the Wind and you have a fabulous novel to work off of, and you have lots of good material, maybe there's an argument for it. But when you're just making something out of imagination, maybe you shouldn't push it that far.
You guys know that when they did the Superman and Batman film, they were actually trying to write that film for over 10 years, I think.
Wow.
And they couldn't.
Man.
Yeah, they should have waited a little bit longer then.
You know something? When you guys are saying, I got to tell you, Batman as a whole, they did with the Dark Knight, that works. I think it works for me. I didn't like the Dark Knight Returns, whatever that was. I hated that one, but the Batman Begins and Batman, those were phenomenal. And I'm going to say one thing, though. When you look at it as a whole of any superhero like that, or even like the new Batman film, I agree with you 100%. It stunk. It's too long, man. And then it's like, what the heck? This guy does not make a good Batman. This guy who played Twilight, whatever it was, horrible. One thing that they did good, Jimmy Kimmel, you guys ever seen the little entertainment where Batman and Superman are talking? Jimmy Kimmel comes out and goes, hey, you're Superman. That's hilarious. I got to tell you.
I was saying, Joe, real quick on this subject matter. It's the hero is only as good as his enemy. And with Batman, for some reason, Joker and a few other handful of them are really great, but all the other villains seem not to be strong enough to make Batman. It's the same with James Bond. If you don't have a good, like the last James Bond movie, God bless the guy who played the evil guy, because he was great in the Queen film, but he just wasn't Malik. He just wasn't strong enough as an evil guy to be the guy that could kill James Bond. It just didn't play.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you guys on the length of some of these movies. I like a movie to be around 2 hours, and there is justification for a longer movie as long as the story allows it. But I think with all these Marvel movies, I think people just became burnt out after a while.
Yeah,
there were so many and they were so long. And it was a great story and all that, but it was like, okay, we're getting a little bit of burnt out. Too much.
Yes.
Too much.
Yeah.
I agree.
And you know what? And going back to the campier or darker comics, I kind of, I really enjoy both. There's a part of me that likes that campy, Silver Age silliness, golden age goofiness of comic books with these characters that are just like, you're looking at me like, okay, this is ridiculous. Let's read the story because it seems kind of cool. But I also like the darker aspect of some of the comics, and I think DC did a great job with it, where they made Batman dark, because if you kind of really look at him, he should be a darker character.
Yes.
But they didn't make Superman darker, and I think that worked, and I'm glad they didn't do that, because Superman was never supposed to be, he is the light side of it. Batman is the dark side. And I want to, if people have never seen this series and they kind of want to know what we're talking about with Batman, I would definitely encourage everyone to check out Batman the Animated Series.
Great.
Ran from 92 to 95. And it is it is probably one of the most perfect cartoons of any genre that ever came out.
Absolutely.
It's always rated number 1 or 2 in TV shows, cartoons. And Mark Hamill, he was the voice of Joker. He played a fantastic Joker in it. But it is the cartoon. It's a crime pulp noir type of animation. And it's fantastic. It is how I look at how Batman should be. Michael,
and was it Kevin Conway? Kevin Conway does Batman on that, right?
Yes, Kevin Conway is the voice of Batman. Yes,
he's great.
Oh, it is. I tell you what, it is one of the best cartoon series ever. Whether comic book or anything, it's fantastic. I can't say enough of it. So
you just made my poster that I have in my storage be worth more. Thank you, Joe.
You have an original one?
Yeah, I have an original. Don't you see when you go into the website and you see it in the filing cabinet? There's some Dark Knight, Batman: The Dark Knight. I've been offered just $200 for that poster already.
That's cool.
Like, no, I'm not selling it.
and Joe, as I recall, people don't realize Harley Quinn didn't start in the comic book. She started on that series, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Harley. That's the first appearance of Harley Quinn was I don't remember what episode it was.
Right.
But she made her first appearance, and then the comic book, there was a Batman the Animated Series comic book that was her first. I believe that was number 17 or something like that.
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah, that was her first comic book appearance, which is my God. And I remember that book on the shelf. That book is going for so much money now. It's disgusting.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people don't realize that was her first ever appearance was on Batman the Animated Series. And I can't remember who she was voiced by, but I'm going to have to look it up, because the lady that played her she did a fantastic job.
She did. Amazing. Yeah.
I think the perfect Superman film would be if you do one like what Christopher Reeve did his, and change the ending where he spins the Earth back. You probably get a perfect Superman film. One thing I want to ask you guys, not ask, but tell you guys, when you're saying about long films and many long hours, when you look at one film that's well written, that kept you and it was, you thought it would be the most boring film, it's really laid back, and you're like, why the hell am I still watching it? And you can't get off the film. It's the Ex Machina. Like the one with the artificial intelligence, the girl.
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina. That film, I'm there like, why am I watching this film? And I just couldn't stop. I couldn't stop watching.
Wow.
I have still never seen that. I don't know if
my God, Joe, come on, Joe.
I don't know if I would really get into it or not.
You would. You can't stop. That's the whole funny thing about it.
Hey, I'd like to recommend a new film that's out right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to recommend Prey. If you're a Predator fan, this new Prey film that's been released on Hulu, it is amazing. It takes place 300 years in the past, and it's all Native American, and it's a female Native American hero, And it's probably most of us that are Predator fans believe it's the best film since the first one with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, really? Now, will that be available in theaters, or is that just a Hulu exclusive?
Well, they took it to Hulu, but everybody can't understand why, because it's so incredible visually and story-wise. And it's just probably, in many ways, it's equal to the original. It's really great.
I've heard it's pretty good and been getting good reviews. So that's definitely one I want to check out. And I'm not too big of a newer movie fan. I did have to see the new Top Gun movie, Maverick.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, my God, I left out of there and I told him, I'm like, I have to go to fighter pilot school now.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Are you serious? Is it good? Because I've been tempted to watch it or not.
I'm going to tell you what now, because I know we're kind of getting off the subject of, comic books and sci-fis, but it's great. My wife's not really a big movie fan, but I told her, I said, I want to see it. It sounds good. She's like, okay, I want to see it, but I've never seen the original. And I said, what? And after I woke up from blacking out, I said, okay, you have to watch the original. So when it was on Netflix, she watched it. She was like, that was really good. She goes, we have to see the new one. She goes, I want to see how this goes. I said, okay. So, we went and watched it, and it is just, it's unbelievable. I mean, we walked out of there and we're like, she's like, when are we going to see it again? We have to see it again.
Wow.
And I'm like, I do too. I'm like, I want to see it again. I could sit there and watch it 2 or 3 times in a row. And it's just, there's no political, social, or any kind of agenda in there. It is a good story with good actors. And it does the character of Maverick justice. It doesn't, a lot of these movies where they do a remake or a sequel, you see where they bring him back and, he might not be as good as you thought he was, and these new characters are better. This is completely different. Maverick he's even better than you thought he was. He is the man. I mean, he is a fighter pilot, and it keeps your attention the whole time. And I think it's only 2 hours or a little bit under.
But Joe, are you
5 hours?
I have a question for you, Joe. Are you a Star Wars fan?
You know what? I am and
I'll tell you why. It relates to what you're talking about. So I'm just wondering.
I am a Star Wars fan of the original 3.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I like the original ones. Yeah.
So when you saw the end of Top Gun, didn't you see that it was pretty much the same end as Star Wars, The New Hope?
Yes, it was. Absolutely. That's what even my wife, she goes, that was like Star Wars, like the trench run. I said, I know.
That's right.
Like it was so cool, but I loved it. Oh man, I'm getting excited just thinking about it.
And then Rooster was pretty much when he came I don't want to give anything away, but at the end where he comes in there and Maverick's in trouble, that's pretty much like you thought Han Solo was gone, but here he is, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there's a huge connection between that and Star Wars. I don't know if they made it that way in particular, but
they had to have. Yeah. But you're right. I agree. I think that film Maverick is probably my favorite film in 20 years.
Oh, absolutely. I will agree with you 110%.
And I hate Tom Cruise, man. You're going to make me watch it.
I'm not a Tom Cruise fan either. But I respect him as an actor, and that
he's a great actor. He's a great actor.
Yeah, whether you like him or hate him, you have to respect him for the professional that he is, and he proves it in this movie.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved him in what was that called? Vanilla Skies. That was
Vanilla Sky was good. Yeah,
I love those kind of movies where the ending is, what it's not clear, like it's an ambiguous type of thing, and almost like the butterfly effect. I always like those types of movies.
That was another good one. Yeah, that was with, who was in Butterfly? Was that Ashton Kutcher? Was that
Ashton Kutcher? That's right. Yeah. I mean, you know what? It's like those kind of movies that blow my mind. It's like, wow, which is the real part here? You know what I mean?
Like Inception. Yeah, that way. Yeah,
exactly.
But I tell you what was another good aspect about Maverick, and for people that have seen the original, is that they had a few flashbacks of the original, but it wasn't something that was overly done. It was the right amount, and it was at the perfect time.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was it showed great respect to the original one, because that one was made at a time when there really wasn't too much, going on with movies, technology wise. It was still in its infancy sort of, and it was just coming up, but it was a good movie, a good storyline. And, I've always said, you could have a movie filled with CGI and a bad story, and it's going to be horrible. Story is everything in a movie.
Yes,
I don't care how much absolutely. CGI or whatever you have, it's all about story. And I think this Maverick movie had a great storyline to it. And I always look at, I could care less about CGI or special effects, but you have to have a good story. And I think that's why I'm sure all you guys could agree. We're all B movie fans, and it's not because of, the acting or the technology. We enjoy the stories. They're fun stories. I think that's part of it that we enjoy.
But what made Maverick so great was the reality of it, because they didn't use a lot of CGI. In fact, all the actors were actually in the cockpit of those planes when they were filming. So they were actually their own director in essence, because they had to just do what they had to do when they were flying these things. So they were experiencing the G-force. They were experiencing everything. So when you saw their reactions and how they were acting, it was a real acting. They weren't acting. They were really experiencing it at the moment.
Yeah, that is neat. Yeah, I think that CGI can be overused. It's like, come on, that's enough, Wow.
Yeah, I tell you, there's another good, and I haven't been watching too many newer TV shows, but Terminal List on Amazon. It's a good one with what's his name, Chris Pratt. He's like a Navy SEAL. It's been a pretty good story. It's based off of a book, but I thought it was. I think I'm on episode 3 or 4, but that's been pretty good so far too. And it kind of goes along the lines with Maverick. There's no type of political or social agenda. It's just a straight TV show with a good story.
Mm-hmm.
Acting's okay and all that, but it's just a fun watch. So I enjoy kind of seeing stuff like that, hinting. And I'm very kind of cautious of what I watch today. I've started some series, and it's just like after episode 1, it's like, what the heck are they talking about?
I know.
Here.
Joe, did you watch Black Sails? Somebody told me about that recently.
No, I never heard of it.
Anybody heard of it?
No.
What's that on?
I don't know. I don't know what channel it's on. It's Black Sails. It's like Vikings, I guess, or the History Channel, something.
Wow.
It's based on pirates, and somebody told me that I will like it. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious.
I'm looking it up right now because I have no idea. So it's a historical adventure television series, and apparently they're on the 4th season. So when did this come out? So it came out in 2013 on Stars.
Wow.
So I think it ran until it concluded in 2017, but it looks like it's a
How many stars?
What's that?
How many stars?
How many stars did it get?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. It has a 65% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and an average of 6 out of 10 on different sites.
And that's called Black Sails, you said?
Black Sails, yeah. Okay. I've never heard of it.
I remember Soupy Sails.
Yeah, me too.
So it looks like here's a kind of a real quick thing about it, because we're running low on time here, but it's set in 18th century, 2 decades before the events of Treasure Island during the golden age of piracy. So sounds like it might be pretty cool. I'm going to have to check it out. But hey, guys, we're down to the last 2 minutes here, so we are going to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. This has been a great conversation, and time flew by. So, guys, thank you for that. It's very enjoyable. And I want to have a shout out and a thank you to all of our listeners out there. Whatever platform you're on, keep listening to us. We have a new podcast every week on Thursdays. Subscribe to our channel. Give us a good review if you're enjoying what we're doing. Also, check us out, houseoftheunusual.com. That's our flagship site. We have a free forum there. We're always looking for new ideas what to talk about, and we want to talk about with what you guys out there want to hear. So if there's something that you haven't heard us talk about in a while or we've never touched on, let us know on the forum site there. There's several different places you could put it on there, and we're always checking, and we'll get a hold of that, and we'll start talking about some different stuff, whatever you guys want to hear. Also, YouTube, we have House of the Unusual. Just put it in the search. You'll come up to our page. Subscribe to our channel, man. Like our videos. Eddie and Chuck are always putting out some great content there. So it is hours and hours of entertainment. So, guys, that's all we got for this week. Chuck, Cheri, Eddie, Michael, guys, thank you for joining us. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Have
guys.
a blessed
God bless.
week.
Have a nice day.
All right, guys. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.